Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody. My name is Phil DJ Right Click Valentine. Uh, DJ because of my excellent taste in music. Well, it's my taste in music, so I would hope it was excellent. Right Click because that was my Appalachian Trail through hiking name, and Valentine, an English surname bestowed upon me at birth. I have been in recovery since December 28th, 1987. So at the time of this recording, what is that, 36 plus years? Yes, unbelievable. Thank you, Priscilla. And I have been at CCAR since January of 1999. So I've been 25 years working at the Connecticut community for addiction recovery. A great majority of that has been um, as executive director. So I see lots of people showing up today. That's always good. Um, we are here doing coaching for coaches, and really it's just to have a conversation about topics that I discover and that have been of interest to coaches. Some of them end up in our advanced academy, some of them are in our recovery coach academy, some of them we revisit. Oftentimes I focus on a word because I really want to tease out and explore the depth of a word. Um, but right now I'm thinking about, I want, it doesn't have to be everybody, but a few of you, um, to introduce yourselves, where you're sitting, and tell me about something that you planned that didn't come out quite as you expected. Something that you planned. And so I'll start. So the big thing on my mind recently has been um, I was diagnosed with cancer back in December of last year. It's a diffuse aggressive. Aggressive is not the good word. That's a bad word for cancer. Diffuse aggressive B cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And since early this year, I've been undergoing chemotherapy. And I've undergone 5 rounds of chemotherapy. Just completed the 5th round last Thursday. But after the 3rd round, they did another PET scan and found there is no more evidence of cancer. They had cut a couple pieces of my small intestine out, and so there's no cancer, although I'm
Okay.
still um, let's say experiencing the effects of chemotherapy, right? And it's a gradual downhill slide, but it's hard to complain about something that saved your life. Again, this is my 2nd round through with cancer. Um, when it comes to planning something, I turned 65 October 5th of this year, and my last day at CCAR as executive director is planned to be October 4th, which is a Friday. So my first Saturday as retired will be my birthday, my first day of retirement. Um, I had planned for these months to spend a lot of time investing in the CCAR staff and really solidifying our sustainability and our finances. Um, but when you get this diagnosis, it doesn't turn out quite as planned. So I've been weak lately because of the chemo, and this is my 3rd day of a 5-week leave from CCAR, allegedly. But I think yesterday I was busier than ever, so I'm not quite sure how that's working out. But um, I think what strikes me, and I've shared this here before, is that I have my mom's voice in my head that talked about me being lazy, when she was angry with me that I was lazy. And I've always thought of that my entire career at CCAR, my entire recovery, that I could do more, that I'm lazy, that I'm not doing enough. Um, and so I have to check with people like my wife Sandy, the 5 alpha females, am I being lazy or am I really sick and can't do this, you know? And it gets mixed up in my head. But anyway, I hadn't planned for it to go out this way. Now I hope to come back in June and July and have a couple good, really good months. We'll see how that goes though. So that's my little story of plans and not working out quite the way I had thought they would. Would anybody else like to go? Introduce themselves, tell me where you're sitting, and then anytime some plans didn't work out quite the way they expected.
I'll go. This is Nate
Thanks,
Rush
Nate.
down here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Uh, I was saying earlier that my brother passed away. He had liver cancer, and he had battled for 2 years, and he all the effects of radiation, uh, chemo slash chemo. It turned his hair white, and he used to weigh around 300 pounds. He got down to about 147 when he finally succumbed. Anyway, so we had the services, his homegoing services that I set up, and a really good friend of his uh, was we all used together, in the 70s, 80s, and in the 70s, for me, 70s and 80s. I got clean in 91, and my brother got clean in 92. Anyway, we wanted this other guy, he got clean through church. Church was his pathway of recovery. And we
Mm-hmm.
wanted him to do his eulogy. But
Mm-hmm.
my brother-in-law, this dude is married to my sister that none of us cared for. He got up there and self-willed the eulogy. Didn't say anything about my brother. Only talked about his son and his stuff. And man, I was livid. I had to work all kind of program on that, not hitting him in his mouth. But so that was an expectation that I had. We had all planned, me and my sisters had planned a service, for my brother to honor him, honor his life. The
Yeah.
good news was there were a lot of people there that talked about him, and that was good. And we gave him his last serenity prayer together. A lot of us
Mm-hmm.
stood up and did a serenity prayer for him. So that
Thank you,
part
Nate.
of it, good. Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you, Nate.
yeah.
It's a good example.
Yeah.
Michael Serrano, Peacemaker, how are you, my friend?
I'm well, thank you. So, I wasn't gonna share, but I had an expectation when I first came to CCAR, and my expectation was just to give back, right? And I had no other expectations. I was just gonna go there, give some hours, go home, and go about my business. But I learned so much that even the first day that I got there, I learned so much that I hadn't learned all my life, right? I was 35 years old at that time and or 37 years old at that time and I didn't know anything about recovery, right? And I didn't expect to be in this position that I'm in right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was all because I took that chance, right? And just going with it. So I know expectations is like I know, and it's funny because you can plan stuff out so pretty and draw it out and be like, yeah, even like going on vacation. My itinerary, everything is set, and then you get there and it's not what you expected. It's probably
Mm-hmm.
raining or something, but
Gotcha.
expect yeah, expectations are is it's unusual.
And you're in Hartford.
I'm in Hartford, Connecticut, by the way. I'm sorry.
And I'm guessing Cindy's probably in Iowa somewhere.
Good guess. Good guess. I'm in central Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. When you asked the question, my first thought was my entire life has not turned out as I expected. But what came to mind was my career. When I was in my active addiction, I felt like I wasn't a good mom, I wasn't a good daughter, a good wife, none of those things, but I felt like I was really good at my career. And I worked really hard at that because that's what I felt like I could really take control of, even though that was not true. But I was on this really great path at this organization. It was a private university. I was on this path, on this career trajectory to get this really cool position in 5 years and all these things. But my ego was so big that I was not doing it in a very healthy way. And my addiction, I was in my active addiction, and it took hold, and I ended up getting fired from that job. And I'd never been in trouble at work my entire life, not a write-up or anything. And I remember, of course, it was all their fault, right? It wasn't my addiction and me being a bad employee, but I pretty much self-destructed for the year after that, had no idea I would get back into the nonprofit world or the fundraising world. And I ended up taking a part-time minimum wage job at a consignment shop, humbled the heck out of myself. And then over time, I gradually got to this place where now I'm humble. I understand that work is not my life, but it is my life when I'm at work. And I'm in this position with this amazing organization today that I never dreamed I would be at. So I just realized that I can't have expectations that life's just I just have to take life as it comes and try to do the next right thing. And it's been working out pretty cool.
Thank you. Hi, Keithy.
Hey Phil, good to see you. Good to see everyone. When it comes to expectations, Phil, first thing come to me that everything's subject to change. I can have this expectation today, and tomorrow I'll be going in a whole different direction. That's something I had to learn very quickly. As as you move through life, and you start to understand things more. But I'm sitting in New York, and I'm thinking to myself, a lot of things came up in with the things you said, and I'm not going to go into it because I don't want to turn into that kind of meeting. But I definitely identified 2020 to 2023 was very hard, and I never expected that. Okay, so
Right.
sister, mother, aunt, uncle, just I was like, when is it going to end? This was crazy, but yeah, everything's subject to change. But I'm humble today. I take things day at a time. I appreciate everything that I've, accomplished. And, one thing I can look back on and be grateful for is that how I was remembered. What was he doing when that transition took place where they can take with them about me? Because I was written off a long time ago about you won't see 25 the way you living. I don't turn all that around. So I take some pride with that. And that's how I move forward. And thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Keithy.
Mm-hmm.
Cynthia, something where you're sitting and something you planned that didn't come out like you expected.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I like the answer nothing turned out, but it has. 2019, I was really at what I thought was the top of my professional game. I was involved with CCAR and doing beginning to do trainings and living in Maryland, and huge recovery community there, huge CCAR community in Maryland. And 2020 happened, and we had to sell our home and move to Virginia. All of those things not in the plan, for the last 10 years. What is the last 10 years of service gonna look like? And that wasn't it, right? And then I got to Virginia, and I thought, well, I was at the top of my career. I'm gonna come down to Virginia and just slide right in. And when you reach a certain age, sometimes it's not easy to slide right in a profession.
Yeah.
And Virginia has their own path.
Yeah.
They have their own curriculum. They have their own path for peers. They don't recognize the recovery coach deal. And I was just kind of lost. Right? What do I do? Where do I go? And long-term sobriety's taught me, it's when I'm like that, just sit back, right? Just sit back, see what unfolds. And I landed with this amazing, amazing organization. And we started teeny and in 2 years have exploded in services. And as of a month ago, we've developed a whole state internship around coaching people to become sober living advisors,
Mhm.
because it's a out of control deal. And guess what? The CCAR curriculum is going to be accepted as part of that apprenticeship and internship, and it's come full circle, right?
Very
It
cool.
has come full circle. But ooh,
Thank you, Cynthia.
last 4 years were nothing of
Yep. Thank you.
the
Great
the
example.
expectation that I had written down.
Hi, good to see you.
Hey, good to be seen. Thank you. I believe I understand the prompt. I missed the first few minutes, but if I talked about an expectation I had that didn't turn out, I would
Something you
say,
planned, yep.
yeah, it's something I planned. I would say my recovery. If you had asked me when I started this process what my life was going to look like today, I would have shortchanged myself.
Mhm.
And the life I have today is extremely different from what I planned. And, removing some of that expectation of, where I thought I was supposed to be and what I thought I deserved turned out to be completely different from what ended up happening. And I'm grateful for that, as opposed to, if I got exactly what I wanted, I don't think I would have been here. So that's something I'd like to share for myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Katrina.
Hi. So I'll try to be real quick. So my expectation of my father has always been huge and a completely different idea of what he has tried to do with all of us. And so for years and years at 16, when I was wildly out of control, he had asked that he told me I had to leave the house. I'm the second out of 5. So I was just causing all this chaos in our home. And he said, you have to leave. And I expected more from him because that was a time where I needed him the most. And I felt like he had abandoned me. So fast forward 2012, I overdose, enter into recovery, and I now am navigating raising children and what that looks like and walking through the years. Last year, my son turned 16, and like mother, like son, he was wildly out of control.
Wow.
And so I walked through all of those emotions, and having done step work on what my father did to me, and trying to take my part in it, I had this like spiritual awakening of why he did what he did.
Mhm.
And so I too had to place my son in a mental institution and kind of gather him resources and just like build these supports around him. But the beauty in all of that is that I was able to really have a conversation with my father of, I understand why you did exactly what you did.
Wow.
And so as much as like that expectation I placed on him for so many years, it was finally lifted through like the trials that I was then later enduring in life.
Thank you. We'll take 2 more and then we'll move on. So, Rennie, good to see you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rennie. My first time on one of these meetings. I'm a person in sustained recovery. I've been sober since February 18th of 2015.
Mhm.
I'm currently in my office in New Haven, Connecticut. I work in a substance use facility.
Mhm.
And I love this topic because I could sit here for an hour and talk about all the things that I expected to happen in my life. And and to be realistic, everything that I've ever planned never goes the way I want it to ever. It really doesn't.
Mhm.
I have 2 children. I have a wife. I work with a lot of people with substance use disorders, and nothing ever goes the way I want it to. But what I've learned in recovery is that I can work through all these processes and work with people like yourselves to find solutions for people. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. I'm, trained to be a recovery coach professional, as well as what I do in my day job here. So I'm just happy to be here. I may have to jump off at some point.
Gotcha.
I am at work, so just happy to be
Thank
here.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Louis. You're muted, sir. You're muted. We can't hear you.
Okay, now,
Yes, you're good.
okay. I was tell that my expectation have a wide spectrum because I have expectation, family, work, and ministerial labor. You know that I am pastor, and the family. I would like go to the vacation, especially to my homeland. And the work label is I am working like a tech in rehab center, every road treatment center here in Rockville, Maryland. And I would like, I am seeking a consular license in training. And in the ministerial, it's like my vocational job. I have expectation in my new mission. I changed my mission, and I am in the adaptation. I mean, new ministerial job in the Alliance Church, and I have to reorganize my work through the church in the area, obviously CC card training and celebrate recovery training. And I have a project, middle term, the support home for the program participants who have nowhere to live. And that is my expectation.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right. Here's your first question for you recovery coaches. When you go into a session with a recovery, what are the expectations of yourself as the recovery coach? Khalees.
Plant a seed of hope. Plant a seed that recovery is possible.
Okay. So you expect, one of your expectations when you show up is that you're going to be able to plant a seed of hope.
I better.
Okay. Anybody else? How do you expect to be? Kai?
That's a tough one to answer because I know things take time. And if I come in with an expectation that by the end of this session something should happen, it takes me out of the present moment. So I guess the expectation I have for myself is to try and be present.
Good. Well, I like that. To try and be present. Priscilla.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was saying, be present, because your topic of expectations, whatever is going on in my personal life, I have to be able to put it on the shelf and be present. So all the external things, I have to do the best I can to be present for the person that I'm of service to, and be mindful that all in all, at the end of the day, it's the end of the day. I got to take care of self, and that's Priscilla.
Gotcha. Thank you. Katrina.
Phil, this is such a great question because I can't tell you how many times I've placed expectations before going into coaching sessions when my
Mhm.
recovery, in fact, teaches me that I can't place expectations on myself or others.
Mhm.
So I think that every situation, especially when you're not quite sure what you're walking into, any bit of like an expectation that could happen through that session could really hinder how you help that individual.
So, can I ask you another question?
Yes.
Do you have an example of like an expectation that you had on yourself or had of yourself when you when you go into a session that wasn't realistic or didn't
So
end up being realistic?
Yeah, so I can give you a specific example that happened in early recovery, and I learned really
Great.
fast,
That's
really
cool.
fast not to do that again. So I had expected to help this guy that I noticed was really sad in the waiting room. And so I went out there and I was like, I'm gonna help him be happy for the day. And so I went out there and I shared some of my lived experience. And he looked at me and said, "Oh, I can't relate to that at all because I'm only an alcoholic." And so I shared pieces of my history that were irrelevant to, and I didn't allow him to share. I was just like, I can understand being in an environment like this. I was here before, and this is what happened with me. And he was like, "Wow, lady, I am an alcoholic. I have never done
Yep.
drugs." So I butchered that.
Well, that's okay. Those are the best learnings, right? You remember it all this time later.
Yes.
Anybody else? And what are your expectations of yourself? You're about to talk to somebody. What are your expectations of yourself as a recovery coach? Who is that distinguished gentleman with that incredible beard now? Who is that guy? Yeah,
How you
Herb,
doing?
go ahead.
How you doing? It's good to be here, Phil. I
Likewise.
actually grew this because of you, believe it or not, but I see you shaved yours
In
off.
honor that I can't, that all mine fell out, right?
So this particular one, Phil, for me, it's just a simple one. I do go into, like when I first start working with somebody, and when I go in, like the expectations I put on myself, I just expect that I'm going to be a supporting ally. No, that's just real as simple as I can put it, just to be there to support them in whatever it is that they need, as far as resources, and build, the first thing I always try to do is build that trust. So I expect that I'm going to build that trust and I'm going to be a supporting ally. So that kind of puts it in a nutshell.
Wow, you're tough on yourself that you expect to build
Yeah.
trust.
Well, I
with
mean,
that. Wow.
but if I don't meet the expectation, oh well.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anthony, how are you? Let's just get you unmuted, Anthony.
How about now?
We can hear you now.
Beautiful. So yeah, I'm on my phone. Thanks to Mr. Kai Fox. I'm talking to you live. Simple expectation is one I learned, and I like to pass it along. It works for me. Before I go into a meeting, I, if you will, put the prayer or the expectation. I do some all kinds of groovy hippie shit, with the breathing and all that, and I just put out at the end of the meeting. The recovery and I will both be very satisfied and happy with how the meeting went. Now, what's going to happen? I don't know. How it's going to turn out? I don't know. I don't even know if they're going to still be my recovery, but it's just like, that's my expectation. And it works well, although it may not be great financially. I'm a private coach, but it does build rapport. So the expectation is the outcome, not how I get there. It's been working.
I like it. Thank you. Nate, what's your expectation of yourself when you go into a session?
Let me make sure I'm unmuted. Yeah, so for me, my expectation is to be able to get out of the way so that I can connect to this person who is there for a reason. And what is that reason? And how can I support them? So my main expectation, what I really can control, is my crowd. And you guys put it beautifully when you say managing my own stuff. And that's the key. When that's my expectation. Where are you at today, Nate? Are you sad? You lonely? You angry? You upset? Don't let that get in the way of you helping somebody. So manage my stuff. That's my expectation.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2 for everybody. What is your expectation of a recovery? And this is the part where somebody like scrolls down and you go to that little scroll bar down below and it says raise hand. And you raise your hand and then I can call on you, just like Rennie did. Hey, Rennie.
Hey, everybody. Good morning again.
Mhm.
You know, my expectation of future recovery would be to try the very best that they can to succeed in whatever they're trying to do. You know, I'm going to guide them as best I can to a pathway of recovery that suits them. And it's their job to really take the chance and to open their mind and to be willing to try something maybe they haven't tried before. That's the only thing I can say, really, because I can't really expect anybody to do anything. So, thanks.
So your expectation is that they are going to try. And what happens when they don't? For you?
You know, I try again with them. That's the best I
Okay.
can do, right? So I keep trying until they try something different.
Gotcha. Good enough. Keithy, what's your expectation of a recovery?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. That's really good reflective questions that really gets you to thinking. But when I give it some thought, I'm, going into a session with a recovery, I'm not going in there with any expectations from them other than just, seeing what, me being supportive and just seeing where it goes and meeting him where he's at. But me just having anything specifically that I expect from that individual, I can't say that I do. Honestly.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mhm.
Cynthia.
Think my expectation is some willingness, right? Just being willing to look at things differently, maybe take an action, maybe just work on being willing to take an action, right? It depends on where they are. I deal with a lot of people in early recovery. And
So same question, what happens if they're not willing for you?
sit back and talk about how do we get willing? How do you find willingness? Are you willing to be willing? Right?
That's such an odd question. Are you willing to be willing?
Are you willing to be willing? If you're not, why am I? How can I be of service to you if you're not willing to have somebody be of service to you, right? And
Art Woodard,
why
Art Woodard had a good response to that. He would say, well, we're scheduled for this time. How do you think we can make the best use of it? And he would go with that, which is kind of interesting too. Thank you. Anthony.
Hey, I'm just hoping and wanting them to be willing to have a conversation, a two-way comm. And there was brilliant. I really like Art. He hits it right on the head. What's this going to be for you? Because in my training, in RCA, when does recovery start? Well, when the recovery says recovery is, I'm in recovery. That's when it starts. It's like, well, what does that look like? I don't know. I don't
Mhm.
know. You know, what's it look like for you? And sometimes these conversations are odd. Like, you know, odd. They're about, you know, his mother, you know, who he met at the bar. I mean, it could be whatever it is. And I think the only thing that differentiates, in my opinion, a recovery coaching session and a bullshit session at the bar is my intent, and at least my communication that, hey, you know, we're in a recovery coaching session. You know, this is actually recovery coaching, and what would you like? Now, I thought to myself, these are really, Tony, these are super low expectations. And then my next question to myself is, well, are they? You know, I'm in terms of like looking at my own stuff, is that a really low expectation?
Mm.
And perhaps not.
Mhm. Well said. Thank you, Tony. Cindy, what are your expectations of a recovery?
I guess I don't really have any. I try not to have any. I think earlier on when I started recovery coaching, I didn't realize I was having these expectations of, oh, we should be done within a certain amount of time, or they should communicate, or do they really want me to be here? So I try to go in, just like others have said, just asking the question, how can I help you? And sometimes they don't even know, or they can't articulate what they need help with at that time.
Right.
So yeah, that's just, I don't know. I get too frustrated, I think, if I set expectations.
And then that's a key point you just said. When you set expectations and they're not met, frustration often sets in, right? That's just the nature of it. Kai.
Hey, I just wanted to explain what I typed in the chat about showing up.
Mhm.
I love the not having expectations around what the conversation is going to be about, where it's going to go, but I certainly have an expectation that they're going to come through the door when we say we're going to.
And what
And
happens when they don't?
I get disappointed. I get discouraged.
Yeah,
I feel like my time isn't valued.
right.
And then the
Little
conversation
resentment there,
becomes,
Kai?
over time it could be.
Yeah.
But then that's me handling my stuff. If I'm going to be completely honest,
Mhm.
it's I understand the community that I work with. Individuals might they may get scared cold feet at the door, and to make a decision to start this work means that they're making a big change to their life, and so I have an understanding around that. But to say I don't have an expectation when we schedule something, and then let's say 10 o'clock rolls around and no one's there, I think it's human. I don't let it ruin my day, but it's certainly, those are the emotions that come up. I process and I go, okay, how do we adapt? What's the conversation now?
Mhm. Thank you. Aaron.
Yeah, I think Kyle mentioned the word there, and it was honesty. I expect them to be honest, and I expect me to be honest back. And I actually put in our pre-coaching agreements the fact, like, honesty is one of the key points in the document that they sign. We're saying that in order for you to get the most out of this, and for me to help you to the best of my ability, I need you to be honest with me, and like I will be honest with you, but I need you to be honest with yourself as well. That's a real key thing for me.
So you triggered my interest. There's a document they sign?
Yeah, so I before I start any coaching sessions, I set expectations on it. And those are just agreements on things about like every down to what the payments are, what we expect the coaching to play out like, what their sort of key there's a coaching agreement. There's actually a document I use which is a sort of data collection point. And I say, what are your top 3 goals by the end of this coaching? And if at any point we're meandering off a conversation, I can bring it back to those goals, or say something along the lines of, did the way your week play out, did it match in alignment with what your goals are?
So your first expectation is that they sign this document.
Well, yeah, from a tangible point of view, yeah. And on this document is
Do you think that puts if you didn't have that document, do you find that document helpful, harmful, or neutral in your
I
coaching experience?
I find, well, there's two of them. I find it neutral from a case of like it's literally just like a one page. I think there's a total of like 5 points on it. I hate red tape. I hate bureaucracy and the all the legislation and the way that we get caught up in these like 20-30 page documents. Like it's boring. No one wants to do it. That is neutral. The other one that I have from like a little survey data collection view is really helpful because I map out the way I expect the coaching to go, or at least I map out a blueprint of how we are going to get the coaching to go across our time together.
Okay. Huh. Interesting. Thank you, Aaron. Anybody else? What's your expectation of the recovery when you enter a session? Anybody else? Katrina.
I was hesitant to share this, but I'm going to get brutally honest. My expectation when I'm not spiritually and emotionally well, when I'm not doing the best at my self-care, is that they're going to be nice to me.
Okay.
And so, do you want to know what happens when they're not?
Oh, sure. You asked yourself the question. I definitely want to hear now.
Yes. So usually I in the past have went to my boss and like cried. And was like, this person was so mean. And she's like, okay, so let's talk about what and why this is affecting you. And usually it pings on like my insecurities of like that failure. I failed this person. I didn't make them happy. They've been mean to me. And that's some deep rooted stuff that like I still have to navigate 12 years later, Phil.
No, sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think if I think about my expectations, well, I'll talk about that a little bit, but it's similar. Thank you, Katrina. Tina, good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Phil. You're looking great. You always have the
Yeah.
colors that make my day.
You're supposed to be honest, Tina. Come on.
I am. You always bringing out the sunshine.
All right.
I just want to say my expectations is based on unconditional love without reciprocation. I'm available to you.
So
I
that's the
want to make you
expectation
happy.
of yourself, right? That you are going to approach this with unconditional love. The question right now is, do you have an expectation of the recovery when you do that?
No expectations.
Okay.
Just basically no reciprocation coming from them. And I'm just here to make you better.
Wow, that's excellent. Thank you, Tina.
Thank
Nate,
you.
what's your expectation of a recovery?
So, like Tina just said, if they show up to the session, it's a win. Period. They came because a lot of people that I work with, their lives in total disarray. They don't know where to get their next meal. They sleeping under a bridge. They just got out of the jail. You know what I mean? So if they show up, they make the time to make the appointment. That's a win. So whatever happens after that is great because they showed up. And we celebrate that because they showed up.
Well
So,
said, like that. When I think about expectations for the recovery, I have come to the point where I really don't have expectations. And in that way, I can't get frustrated or hurt or disappointed. I think early on as a recovery coach, and I've kind of been like a coach my whole life, that I had this, it was based on arrogance and pride, ego, that I would expect a recovery to listen to me. You listen to me, that's what I would expect. You listen to me. And then there's even if you do the 12-step sponsor thing, right? Not only do you listen to me, you do what I say. And that doesn't work out very well. This is just a harsh reality. Um, I think now that as my art of recovery coaching has evolved, my expectation now And it's almost like it's not a challenge, that might be too strong a word. It's more of a curiosity, is that I expect that I will come up with a good question. That is an expectation I have of myself. If the person is engaged and they're no, even if they're not engaged, if they're there, they show up, right? Like Nate says, I expect I'll be able to ask a good question. Priscilla.
Thank you. I was just thinking, if I was the recovery and meeting with you and some of those expectations were put on me, you would put me back in my mindset of I gotta have a story for why I'm not here, why I'm not coming. And
Yeah.
my suggestion is maybe I'm older, but meet me where I'm at. Because
Yeah.
I may show up, I may not show up, I may want to be friendly, I may not want to be friendly. So if you just say, this is my time with Priscilla from 11 to 11:30, whether I'm there or not, we just be mindful. In a perfect world, everything would be perfect, but you got to reel back to where we were at or where others that we know were at. And, what does that look like? Yeah. So what's the meet me where I'm at? Use your art.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Anybody else? Expectations of yourself and or the recovery.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, Jess. You're
Yeah,
driving around Rhode Island or something. How are you?
yeah, I'm out in the little state of Rhode Island. I'm well, thank you. Love being on today and just feeling these thoughts and questions and invoking all these different thoughts from me. So I just wanted to say that, like, that a great question about, what do I expect from my recovery? And I I learned early from a mentor that told me, I was complaining to her about how a person didn't show up. And she just like flipped the mirror right onto me and was like, were you able to show up in early recovery and do the things that you said you were gonna do? Were you able to hold yourself accountable and show up? And I never showed up. I was always late, even if I did show up. Like I was a horrible like example of a person in society of being responsible. So she told me, expect your recovery to act like a new person in recovery. She was like, why are you having all these expectations? She's able to do all of these things that is not characteristic of somebody in new recovery. So that was really eye-opening for me, and I would say my expectations lowered to a much lower level, where it's just like I expect people to act like they're new in recovery.
Well, that opens a whole can of what. Because what is the question is, how does a new person in recovery act? But you get some of those, but we could generalize and stereotype all we want about what a new person in recovery, how they behave, right? So, but yeah, I gotcha. Cool. Keithy.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. After some thought and just kind of thinking to myself that, we have a tendency as professionals as professionals, I know I do. I kind of overthink some things when we got to kind of really kind of keep things simple and keep it to the art. And I appreciate that, Phil. I hope that I asked a good question. But now, in terms of the recovery, in terms of expectations, I expect them to be the recovery. They're going to be a recovery and whatever comes with that. You know, whether they define or whatever the case may be, but they're going to be themselves.
Okay.
That's pretty much. I mean,
So here's a oh, I want to hear from Michael. You got some thoughts. I know you do.
I just was thinking when you said you expect to have a good question, and I'm just curious to know, like, what do you expect from the recovery? If you expect from yourself to have a good question, what do you expect from the recovery? I'm just curious.
In response to that question?
Yeah, to yours.
Well, I've said this many times, the number one compliment a recovery coach can receive is, that's a good question.
No, but you got to say like, dang, that's a good question.
It doesn't even have to be an answer, but the number one compliment a recovery coach can receive is, that's a good question.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny, when I used to be in the emergency department, I had coaches shadow me. I used to just joke around with them, but I was really serious with them, to saying, before we entered the hospital, I used to turn around and look at them and say, expect the unexpected. And it was so true. Like, you can't, we used to get calls from the hospital staff like, oh yeah, this person wants detox. And I used to like, oh yeah. But I never really expected the person wanting detox. I just expected myself to show up and just have a conversation with someone. And I didn't expect anything out of that conversation. It's just how it is.
Well, you just opened up a whole nother thing too. But if you think about it, can you really expect the unexpected? Because if you expect it, it's no longer unexpected. I mean, so like, I don't get that saying at all.
I get it, because you expect it to go one way, and it ain't gonna come out that way.
Well, then you expected it. You're contradicting yourself. Anyway, we're gonna get stuck up on that word. I'm gonna, Keithy, is your hand up? Did you have another comment, or no? You good? All right. Let's shift this a little bit. So we've boiled it down to, expectations for yourself as a recovery coach, expectations of the recovery. I want to go one of two directions, but I think I'll go this way. What are your expectations of your career as a recovery coach? Michelle starts laughing.
Well, good morning, Mr. Valentine.
Good morning, Ms. Harder.
It's nice to see you smiling.
Yeah, it's good meds. No, I'm just kidding. It's
Good
all
meds
you
are
people.
probably-
You guys keep lifting me up. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see you're here and looking well.
Thank you.
My expectations of my recovery coach profession
Or your career.
or my
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
It
Use
was
that word,
nothing like
career.
I anticipated. I had no expectations at the beginning, because it's just been so long now. There was really no expectations there. It was kind of like a ball of wax that was trying to form. And so we just didn't know, we didn't know what we didn't know, right? And so I literally had no expectations until I had been around a few 24 hours. And then I started having a lot of expectations of myself and of my recovery. And mostly that was based on, like you said earlier, my ego. I expect people to listen to me and to go along with what I say, because listen, nobody knows better than me, right?
Right.
And then I got the 2x4 moment, right? That's just not the truth, right? And comes with learning from the person that's sitting across from you, what the expectation is of my job. I don't do much one-on-one stuff anymore, and I miss it. I didn't think I would, but I do. That people part of it, that core part of just helping people, right? That's the expectation of my job. I just want to help people. And that has significantly changed over the years. And so maybe one day before I have my final hurrah, I'll get to do a few one-on-ones.
Yeah, there you go. Tony.
Yeah, thank you. As everyone can see, I'm a participator. I expect of my career, my participation, this is big, to ding the community, to make an effect. Like Steve Jobs made a great comment, way bigger than anyone I've ever heard. He wanted to ding the universe, right? And it's like, that's a pretty big, cool expectation. I want to ding the community. I want to have what I'm doing influence the community, hopefully in a positive way, because, I think we all know, we both know that, what we want can do the volt vis, the reverse. But that's what I'm expecting for my career. And it might be a big way, a small way, but that's it.
Thank you, Tony. Tina?
This may be a little different, but when you serve, out of serving come excellence. And my goal or my expectations is to serve until I die.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure every minute, every second, to serve individuals because I believe that's my purpose. So that's the expectation that I put on myself, being a servant.
Okay, thank you. What are your expectations as a recovery coach career? Khalees, I was going to ask you.
So I'm probably gonna ramble because I'm still processing. But a couple of things that come in my mind are to remain humble, to like continue to do the work, the internal work, to remember to like carry the light, like to carry a message of hope. And like, we see a lot of people get caught up in status or profit or all of these things and society, and I think I expect myself to keep the heart into the heart work and the hard work, to sit down and take a look in the mirror and remember to do that inner work. And because sometimes you can get lost, we can lose ourselves, and we need to remember why we started in the first place. So I hope that I don't even want to say I have expectations. Did you hear me? I just said I hope that. And so I think it's not, I don't even have that expectation for myself. I just hope that I can continue to do that.
All right. So is one of your hopes or expectations is that you can make a good financial living from providing recovery coaching services or being a recovery coach?
Well, let's ask this question, Mr. Philip Valentine.
I've
What do
trained
you
you too well.
define
You're a
as
pain in the ass.
what do you define as good living? Let's talk about that.
Let's do what?
What do you define as a good living?
Okay. Well, in the purposes of this question, it would be what you define as a good living. Can you earn a living that you want to be in through the provision of recovery coach services?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I mean, it could be, I'm well enough. That's I keep my lights on. That's okay. That's good.
Right. All right. Fair enough. Because a lot of the answers so far have been more about internal values than material goods. And when you talk about career in other worlds, it's usually about finance and material and provision and buying stuff. So I just want to see
Maybe
how
that's the
it feels.
problem. Maybe that's the problem right there is it's all about the material, finance, external stuff, when really we need to do the internal work, and you'll probably be a lot happier.
How about that?
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Kai wants to jump in on this. I know he does.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, the expectation I have for myself in the career is to stick around. I can't have any expectation, but the second I walk away from this, I may be giving up on the miracle before it happens. So I've gotta stay in the coaching, stay in whatever opportunities may arise, because opportunities can come from many different places. So I want to stay prepared for when an opportunity arises. Well, preparation meets opportunities where luck kind of hits.
Can I ask you a question?
I'd love to hear it.
You want to stay, until the miracle happens, is what you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it hasn't happened yet.
I would say it hasn't yet.
And so what would that look like?
I think for me, it would look like peace, sustainability.
The fear of financial insecurity shall leave us.
Yes, yeah. We will intuitively
Yeah.
know how to handle situations which used to baffle us.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly.
Uh-huh.
That's my favorite part. But
Amen.
yeah.
I think when you talk about some of those promises, we're talking about the promises in 12 steps, that I don't know when they all came true for me, but they did. It wasn't like a moment in time. It's just like you continually read those promises, and then I was like, I'm not going to have any of those. I'm not going to have any of those ever. And then all of a sudden you're in a meeting and they read the promises and go, check, 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 check. And you go, well, how did that happen? I had no idea how that happened. Still don't to this day. Mr. Boyd.
Mr. Ray Click.
Yes.
So Phil, my expectations with the career I've had, which started with you, that with C-Car, and just to continue to, make have a positive impact on people's lives. That's like, I expect that to happen. And even though if like when people like, trip and fall a few times, I mean, it still doesn't take away from the positive impact I've made on them. And also,
Right.
and just to empower people to take control of their own recovery journey. Like that's, that's something, that I expect that I will do throughout my career, just always be a positive impact and, empower people, man, take charge of this thing, just like somebody did for me.
Can I ask you a question?
Always.
So I know
I'm
that
scared of your questions, but ask.
I know you are. Not
Right.
really, though. So I know that this career that you're in now, you started late in life for some good reasons.
Yes.
And it's really blossomed. So how would you explain this? Like you've moved from places, you've moved up, you're doing well. How would you explain all that?
Providence.
Yeah. Okay.
Really. Yeah, definitely Providence.
Okay. Good answer. Thank you, Herb.
You're
Is it
welcome.
Scott? Scott? You're muted.
Yes, am I unmuted?
Okay, you're good now.
Oh, hi, Phil. Yes. Of course, so the question is, what are my expectations of myself as a recovery coach? And for me, it's to continue to grow in understanding and effectiveness. Recovery coaching is a science and an art. The art is in the MI, asking the good questions. And like you said, the number one compliment that you can get as a recovery coach is your recovery telling you that's a good question, right? So, that's my hope and plan is to grow in the MI part of it, the art, developing my art and asking good questions.
Cool. Thank you,
And
Scott.
my expectations with my recoveries I'm working with, I so much don't have expectations, but I do have a recovery capital plan that I work with them on. And I hope hopefully they have a goal that they're willing to work towards, and hopefully I can help them get to that goal by asking good questions and developing that relationship.
Scott? Celine, you're not getting away with it. You knew that too.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, is always to remember what got me here, never
Oh,
forget
yeah.
what got me here, and stay humble and kind, and always try to remember where people are at or meet them where they're at. And some people aren't loved, so to love them until they're able to love themselves.
Thank you. Nate.
So at the edge of my, like what you agree to retire, but I don't want to, I don't want to punch a clock, but I want to continue to be a recovery coach, professional facilitator, and then other professional coaching. Some of the I live in Indianapolis, and I don't know, the geographics here, but I have a pretty good reputation in this community around addictions and recovery, more around recovery. And so I just want to continue to allow the guy that I call God to just lead me wherever I end up, I'm good with it. I'm on the path. So I'm on the journey. That's as long as I can wake up and see see the light, feel, I'm excited.
Amen, brother. Michael, you've had you started off like not knowing about CCAR, got asked to come volunteer at one of the centers, kind of got just knew you were supposed to be here. What do you think in terms of your career now and expectations? You've been at CCAR as an employee now for how long? 5
The
years?
22nd of this month will be 7 years.
7 years. All right.
Mhm.
So how has your career been so far, and what are your expectations for it?
Well, I didn't expect to be in this position that I'm in right now.
Which is what?
I'm the facilitator development manager.
Yeah.
So I oversee all the facilitators around the world, and help support with their development and see if I can have them collaborate with each other, right? That's why I have those support collaborators. But my expectations weren't where I'm at right now, right? I started off as a volunteer, and then that opportunity of being a recovery coach in the emergency department presented itself, and I really didn't take it serious until one of the coaches that was doing it at the time. She says, "Did you put your resume in?" And I was like, "Nah." She goes, "Well, I would do it right now," and it was just the right timing. I did it. I got an interview. I was very nervous. It was 4 women interviewing me, and then I realized, like, wait, I live with 3 women, my wife and my daughters, and I'm used to them. I'm used to not having a say in anything, right? So then I looked at it that way. I was like, wow, I'm having women in front of me. I'm used to this. Let me just knock it out. And I expected nothing less than where I'm at right now, I guess, right? Because I just, like Nate said, I just leave it up to my God of my understanding, and I'm just blessed. I'm blessed. And for me to what to expect in the future, I really don't know, right? I look at it like my mom's would say to me, if God brings you to it, he'll bring you through it. And
Yeah.
that's how I look at it.
Hey, I have a good question from a participant who will remain anonymous, but they wonder if you expect facilitators to show up and continuously engage for their own personal and professional development. Is that an expectation you have on your on the facilitator?
No, I do not.
No expectations of facilitators?
I just expect them to have a great time in each training that they do.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Good for you. Go ahead. Yeah, Jess.
sorry, I don't have the little hand button because I'm on the mobile device. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't think I had anything to share on this one. But then when I started thinking, I entered the field like a lot of people, probably by, an interest and then volunteering and then taking a lot of trainings. And I got really enamored by the C-car model and just started taking every single training and facilitator training that C-car offered. And I don't want to say almost obsessed with it, but I got like addicted to like how much I enjoyed classes. And what I thought is I was going to get all these classes and I was going to be, get all these facilitator trainings and, pay the money to be able to facilitate all of these trainings. And that's what I was going to do in Rhode Island. I was going to be, there was a small cluster of people that were trained to do the C-car trainings. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I was recovery coaching. I became a director of a recovery center and then do all this independent stuff. And COVID hit and I tried to figure out how do I break into that with these different nonprofits and how do I kind of like breach through the wall. So, and lots of people were like, it's conflict of interest and like nobody really wanted to, give me a chance or maybe I wasn't doing the right thing and to get my own chances. And, so I kind of left the field. And so I haven't really been working in the field. So it didn't go at all as what I expected. I was doing a little bit of independent. I do a little bit of independent recovery coaching, but it's not at all what I expected it to be. Like I said, I can facilitate, any of the trainings besides the young people one. And I've never once done it. So it's not at all what I had expected, but we'll see that the future is still ahead of us. I still have a desire and I have a business right now that I'm thinking about turning into a nonprofit to help mental health and support recovery down by the water, doing paddleboarding, kayaking. So, who knows what the future holds. Thank you.
Thank you. Great insight. Appreciate that. Oftentimes when I train the Recovery Coach Academy or any deliveries, I say that recovery coaching is a way to be in the world. And so it just becomes a part of who I am. It's just a way to be in the world. And who knows, maybe the recovery coaching skills, are fueling your paddleboard business. Who the heck knows? I don't know. But, I don't know. Tony.
Thanks again, Phil. It's an honor to be here amongst everyone. I realized something. I've already achieved my purpose and I need to make a new one. You see, I've been in the industry 25 years now. I've been a coach for a couple of years formally. That means I've been mostly, almost entirely ceasing to be a consultant. So I was consulting for over 20 years and I realized that I've already brought in, I've seen the bringing in of natural, holistic modalities into pretty much all recovery programs that I'm interacting with. And that was my big goal back in 2000. I wanted to, I want to see nutrients, vitamins, health, exercise, all these things put in place. And so I've actually realized, and just sitting here, that's already happened. So great new problem. I need to create a new dream, so thanks for listening.
Thank you. Tina.
Say this because this was important. I went through school, finished up my degrees, and none of them really had what complemented who I was. Phil Valentine came and put together I guess it was in Battle Creek, Michigan, Spirituality and Recovery. And that thing complemented who I was. And we have more years behind us than in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like God allows people on our journey. So this time I really felt with CCAR, I was able to integrate spirituality in my purpose and to see lives change. So the journey for me was CCAR. I was going to retire from being an addiction therapist, but I refired because CCAR gave me what I needed to finish my journey, to do the things that complement who I really am, and that's spirituality and recovery, because I feel like God is the God of recovery. So I thank you for being in Battle Creek, Michigan. Honestly, my gift is making room for me. People they're looking for this program, and I just thank you for the opportunity. I really do. It's just a whole different shift. And even though I'm older, I got a refresh. I got a new a push. I'm running. I have resilience because I found something that fits my purpose. And thank you so much, Phil.
Oh, thank you. When we talk about expectations of a career, right, I'm going to even ask you maybe even a more profound question and take it a little outside the realm of recovery coaching. And what are the expectations of your life? So and Laura's like, that's a pretty big question. And I've asked recently, and Tina, you talked about it. We got more years behind us and in front of us. So what do we do with the time we have left, right? And so I'm approaching retirement, but I think it's what Tony was talking about too, a chance to a new dream, a new opportunity, a new expectation, a new goal, if you will. And I used to have 5 A's, but I added an A, and I want to be an artist. I want to be an author, continue to write. I want to be an advocate. I want to be an adventurer, which means I think every day you have a chance to go on some type of adventure. I want to be an athlete. And when I say athlete, I want to keep myself in good enough shape that I can do all the other ones. And the last one that I just came up with is angler, that I am definitely going to be a fisherman. Angler as a fisherman. So I got 6 A's now. There you go, Kai. Those are the 6. And so those all kind of came to me. And I know when I write them down, and like I have this book without lines and I write in it, when you write things down and you draw them, or you can map them out, or you can just write them as goals, there's something almost mystical to that experience that it tends to happen. It's not like you have to go back and review it every day. It's something about it flowing out of you onto paper or something that just makes it happen. Now, I ain't going to be anybody freaking ally. You guys are on your own. God damn it, Michael. No, I'm just kidding. Michelle, I'm sorry. You're being patient through my rant here.
I'm so used to your rants after all these years. It's okay. I actually enjoy them. I will say this. When I read that you were retiring and that you had also been affected by your second bout of cancer at the same time, I'll be honest with you, I cried. I was so sad. And then when I either listened to or read, I can't remember, what am I going to do with the time I have left? What am I going to do with the time? And that struck me so profoundly, because as you know, I'm in the same situation that you are. And, I've thought often, what am I going to do with the time I have left? And that question still remains, is how much time is that, right? Because I need to know when the day is coming that I'm not going to be here anymore, and I did that kind of list, writing it down of what I wanted to be. I've had a bucket list probably since I was 35. And I would have to say that 3/4 of the things on my bucket list, I've accomplished, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
Travel being a big part of that. And I'm going on safari in a couple of weeks where you did.
Wow.
Yeah, so
You'll love that.
I think I'm going to love that. But what I want to do with the rest of the time that I have is I just want to live. And I want to live. This sounds so selfish, and I don't mean it to, but I want to live for me, right? For me. And not for any other human being but me, except for my grandchildren.
Yeah.
Right. I want to be a good grandmother, right? I want to be a healer. I want to help. I still want to help people, but maybe not in profession, maybe by just having conversation, you know?
Yeah.
And I want to be healthy, you know? I'm hoping that writing it down on that blank piece of paper puts it out into the universe. And, you know, the next time I go to the doctor, they say, you're all clear, you know?
Yeah.
Prayer works, right? So I just want to be a good grandmother, and I want to be healthy, and I just want to be a good person. I just want to live. Yeah, you know,
Profound.
because who
Thank you.
knows,
Thank
right?
you.
When you sit at our age, and I do say our age,
Yep.
67 or 8.
You're way older than I am.
I'm not way older than you are, very minimally older than you are. But when you think about it in like the long range, so
Yeah, I
maybe
got
we have
you.
20 years left, like, and I think about how
Right.
fast 20 years went,
Oh, I know. Gosh.
right? You know, so yeah, just want to live.
Thank you. Anybody else? Expectations you want to share about life, about what you're going to do with the time you have left? No, it's a big question. Kai.
Yeah, I think there are things that I don't expect, but what I expect of myself is to do everything I can to not hurt people the way I did in the past. And you know, I look back on that and I say, God, that can't happen again.
Okay.
And so that expectation is to do whatever I consistently can, big or small, to move away from that. And everything else, you know, just icing on the cake.
Thank you, Kai. Tony.
I recently spoken with a gentleman who in business runs a kind of a connection business. And and speaking with him further, I discovered some profound things. He actually, besides being a business guy, he's a minister, and he was, you know, working in South Africa for 5 years and establishing schools and doing all these incredible things. And he came to me and he said, he believes that we were sent here, or we came here as individuals, and what God is a it's almost an invitation, or a connect. God is the opportunity to connect with others, and therefore, in connecting with others, we find God, we find ourselves, we find each other. So finding each other is really the mission that we have. And this is what he said to me. And I looked at that and I went, I could dig that. You know, I can jump on that train. I like that. So this idea of connection, which we hear so much in recovery, it's like, you know, it's all over the place. Went from disconnection to connection. I guess I would add a little flip to that, which is I want to connect with meaning and purpose, of more of what I want to see. And yeah, it's egocentric. Sure, I'll go with that, or not, depending on who you are and where you're at in your life journey and where I am at. But you know, I want to see a world more like the one I really want to live in and I aspire to live in. And you know, a lot of hippy dippy shit.
Right.
That'll all be cool. Right?
All right. Sounds good, Tony. Thank you. Katrina.
Phil, thank you. It's such a large question. So I will say this. I appreciate this. On the way to work this morning, I was thinking, and I don't know if it's because I'm going to be 40 this year. My kids are teenagers. They're like nearing the end of their high school. So the next 2 years or so looks really different for me with all kids being out of the house, crossing their fingers, maybe, who knows. But so with talking with my sponsor, like what I have been trying to implement in my life, because my career always falls into place. So I trust God with my career now because like he has just opened doors, shut doors. So I've allowed that process. So I have like no fear in that area. But what I've been doing for myself is, so on my way to work, I was thinking about how when I looked in the sink this morning, there was like hair. My husband has like a really long beard. And so like there's beard hair everywhere. And so what I've noticed is like I'm learning to love that. I'm learning to love that when I open my teenage daughter's room, like there's dishes.
Yeah.
Because there will be a day that I won't be picking up those things. And like embracing the messy parts, literally embracing those messy parts, and learning to just like love life for what it truly is.
Yeah.
So thank you for that question. I mean, I could go on and on, but what a beautiful question.
Thank you. Khalees.
I feel like Katrina kind of took a lot of like what I was gonna say because I was feeling like a little bit off yesterday, and I've realized that this week will be a year since my best friend died. And
Yeah.
so like I've pretty much been on a year of
Mm.
learning to live with grief and, managing that and picking up the pieces. And I just was like off my game yesterday. So I was a full mom. Like I was a mom all day yesterday because sometimes you just have an off day and listening to the birds and playing in the yard and games and questions. And I mommed out so hard yesterday. And we've talked about before, like people never remember how much we worked. But like the time we have with like people is so precious. Like, and we won't get that back. Like my son's never going to be 10 again. Like he's never going to be 10 again. So whatever we have now is just there. And it's just, yeah, I kind of like what Katrina was saying, like just love life, like love deeply and like don't regret it. If I could choose to have lunch with my son versus like go to a meeting, I'm just going to take that opportunity to go to lunch with my son because that's it.
Gotcha. Well, thank you all for this conversation. A couple of years ago, I lost both parents within a short period of time. Made me ask this question again. You get cancer again, and you go, okay, how much time do I got now? What are you dealing me here? I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get through this day, but you're not even sure of that sometimes. You just never know what could happen. And, you know, I used to have a lot of fear around all that. I don't have the fear. I'm not looking forward to dying, but I'm not afraid of dying. I kind of am approaching it with curiosity. I mean, what is it? None of us gets out of here alive. So what is it when we pass over? I'm very curious about what that is. So I've asked myself this question now for 2 years, and I'll give you the answer of what do I do with the time I have left? And I've come down with a lot of prayer, a lot of walks in the woods, a lot of just time talking. I'm sure like Celine and Michael and Khalees probably, they're all sick of me talking about this, but I've come to the realization for me, you ask me, Phil, what are you going to do with the time you have left? Enjoy it. I mean, and I think that's what God wants for all of us. I mean, if we get put on this planet, right, to fly around the sun, I can't think of any other reason to be on this world except to enjoy it. Now, with that, I hear what Michelle is saying. It might sound selfish. I don't think it sounds selfish because I think I have two caveats to that. If I'm going to enjoy life, I have two obligations. One is to make it enjoyable for others, more enjoyable for others, right? So think about what we do as recovery coaches. We're trying to help people have a better, more enjoyable life, right? Through the process of recovery, which we found makes our lives more enjoyable. And the second is became a weird thing that I didn't really think about until it was more spiritual in nature, is that if this is truly our spaceship, planet Earth, we need to take care of it so other future generations can enjoy the ride too. So that's why I've been real involved with picking up plastic and trash and doing what I can for the environment. I was not much of an environmentalist. I used to say I'm going to leave the biggest carbon imprint I possibly can. And not anymore. I know I'm such a bonehead. But anyway, so for me, my expectation is to enjoy life. And I thank all of you because this last hour and a half I've really enjoyed. And I'm super appreciative of each and every one of you for contributing. So I hope you have an enjoyable rest of your day. And I'll see you soon. I'm not giving this coaching for coaches up because I enjoy it so much. Take care, everybody.